Growing up, I didn't know nothing about jiu-jitsu, never even heard of jiu-jitsu. I got into a lot of fights growing up, a lot of street fights, got jumped a couple times. I remember third grade on the football field, I got jumped by like 6 kids. They'd always gang up on me because I was the African kid, I guess. I was the African kid, but we were playing football and I think some stuff just went left. I think a kid, I don't know, I took the football from the kid or something. I don't remember exactly what happened. But long story short, I got punched in the back of my head. Next thing you know, I'm getting jumped by like 6 guys. This was in St. Louis at Kratz. Yeah. So growing up, I had to get into a lot of fights. Got in a lot of fights on the block, fights on fights on fights with everybody. My older brother, his friends, all older, constantly in fights. So I always wanted to learn how to fight, and but I knew nothing about martial arts. It wasn't until 8th grade, summer year, going into freshman year, is when I had my first experience with jiu-jitsu and wrestling/grappling. I got ragdolled in this backyard fight. This was back in the day when never back down was a thing. I got taken down. I got slammed on my head. I got put in a choke, choked out. I got manhandled. Did not like how it felt. Got up off the ground, fought dude again. He took me down. Couldn't do nothing about it. It was so foreign to me, wrestling and grappling. So I had to learn it. And I dedicated my life to learning it over the last 16, 17 years. I'm a black belt now. And here's some lessons I've learned throughout that journey. Now that I'm a black belt and I've dedicated a lot of time to it, ultimately I'm still a white belt. The more I learn, the more I learn that I don't know anything. I don't know enough. There's so much to continue learning in the game and in life in general. But my first tournament ever, I got my arm snapped in half. The way you guys seen Kevin Holland on UFC 302 snap that dude's arm, it didn't get snapped that bad, but I got my arm snapped in my first jiu-jitsu tournament. I was doing pretty good. I took the dude down. I was winning. And I slipped up, had my hand on the mat. Dude snagged my arm up. I didn't want to tap. There was a few seconds left. Broke my arm. That was my first tournament in jiu-jitsu. From that day, I learned a valuable lesson. Don't put your hand on the mat. Put your hand in the right position. Learned from that. Never got my arm snagged up like that again. That was my first white belt tournament. Some of my best memories in life are from my jiu-jitsu competition days and in the lower belts to become a black belt. I'm still going to compete at black belt. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just reminiscing on the stuff I've learned throughout the years. The main lesson, one of the first lessons I've learned is don't give up. When you fail, that's just like a way to, you just have to adjust things and keep going. I would go every month. I'd have a jiu-jitsu tournament. If I got wrecked, go back to the gym, work harder, way harder, come back, piece the people up. And those lessons from those tournaments is what I take into my life today. So even with my YouTube channel, if you look at some of my first videos to now, look at how they've improved dramatically. And even they still continue to improve dramatically. And a year from now, it's going to be even improved, even more so. So just the mindset of using failures to get you closer to your goal. I've learned that from jiu-jitsu. There's just so many lessons. Some of my best friends in life I've gained from jiu-jitsu, getting strangled on the mat, strangling each other on the mat. All my friends, I fought every single one of them. All my closest friends, I fought every single one of them. So, my first time ever winning a championship in jiu-jitsu was Chicago 5 grappling. I'll never forget that. I was a white belt. I never won gold yet. I won bronze and some things like that. I was putting in a lot of hard work on the mat. I'm talking like 6-hour days on the mat. It was all I was obsessed with. And to win the 5 grappling championship was a huge, huge accomplishment at that time. I remember telling my coach, like, I'm going to win the tournament this weekend. We went to Chicago. I had 6 matches. This was at white belt, I believe. I believe I was a white belt, possibly a blue belt. But went out there, fought a bunch of guys who had more experience than me, fought a bunch of guys who were tough, strong. And I went out there and I dominated. I dominated the tournament and I won. And against guys who probably should have beat me. And from that moment, I just was I figured something out. I figured out something myself. I was probably I think I was 19 at that tournament. From that moment, I learned that, on a different level, we all know hard work pays, but for me, it just kind of solidified it more. Hard work pays. Even if you feel like you're not gaining anything, and if it seems like the road is just dark and it's taking forever to get to the top, or it's taking forever just to get to your goal, as long as you're putting in effort to that thing, it always ends up manifesting itself. To get that gold medal, I had to fail 4 or 5 times in tournaments. So that's I probably had 30, 40 matches to get to that gold medal. But when I got to that gold medal, things kind of changed from there. I got the confidence and I knew the formula for success. So after that, after winning that gold medal, I didn't really lose much at all. I went and started winning tournaments after tournaments after tournaments because I knew the formula and I knew I'm supposed to win. A lot of it is mindset. That's what it showed me in the white belt days. In the white belt days, I learned that confidence is key and believing that you can achieve something and is a big part of the game in every aspect of life, not just martial arts or fighting. I love using martial arts as an allegory for life because they go hand in hand. Especially when you go into the cage, the consequences are so dire, but it's the exact same thing as going in life. In the cage, you might get knocked out, but in life, you're gonna get a couple bucks. I don't know. You're gonna get the job. You're gonna get the promotion. You're gonna win in business. But they're very, very similar. It's wins and losses. And lessons learned. So white belt days, biggest lesson I learned was the hard work pays off. Stick to the path, stick to the journey. When I became a blue belt, that's when I learned the most. Blue belt was just when you go into blue belt, there's people who have been in there for 10 years. I had 2 years of experience at that point. I'm going against guys who were training for 10 years. And this showed me a very interesting thing. Someone could be training for 10 years and someone could be training for 2 years, but the guy training for 2 years who has the belief and the fire and the passion and the desire can be way better than the guys who train for 10 years who really isn't fired up about it. It really is all about your mindset. So that goes with anything. I went into blue belt, not very much experience, but I stepped on a mat this is my place, this is my shit, and I deserve to be here, and I'm gonna win. I'm gonna beat everybody. I expected to win and beat everybody, and a lot of times I did. And every once in a while, you run into a guy who had the same mindset, and we would have just an amazing match. I fought this guy Andrew Wiltsey. He was the world champion multiple times over, and I fought him 2-3 times. And he beat me, he beat me every time, but we had some good matches. We had some really, really good matches. And I learned that so much of it is just the mental game. In blue belt, I traveled all over the place, was competing every month, really refined my skills. And I learned that in a short amount of time, you can get really good at a skill. It's just about the daily effort you're putting in. At Blue Belt, in 2 years, I got so good that it was like I was training for 10 years because my routine was just jiu-jitsu every day in, day out, grinding on the mat, training, refining my technique, sparring every day. And that's why still to this day in MMA and whatever I do, whether it's business, anything, I take these lessons and it literally works every single time. When I started my business when I started my business years ago, but when I really seriously started like taking my business serious, personal training in 2022, it was a pretty scary thing because it's like, this is all I'm doing now. I have to make it happen. This is how I'm making my money other than fighting, but you only fight 3 times a year max, 3-4 times a year. So I just used the exact same formula I learned when I was a blue belt, and my business took off. It did really well in that first year. And regardless of every single month that passed, I knew I could always rely on these principles to be successful, and it showed. So blue belt years, I really learned how to really be successful, and I learned the formula for refining skills, not just in fighting, but refining skills in anything, whether it be business, video editing, whatever. I learned how to refine my skills, and I really conceptualized that. Going into purple belt is just refining the skills even more so, just kind of sharpening the blade. When I got into purple belt, I started switching gears to do MMA. That was always my goal. Become a purple belt, start doing MMA. And in purple belt, I competed still a little bit, but my focus was MMA and fighting, getting in there, throwing hands with people, so my focus kind of shifted. But my first fight in MMA, I absolutely wrecked the dude. I was supposed to be the sacrificial lamb in that fight. I was supposed to be a sacrificial lamb. I'm going out there in Iowa. I'm fighting this dude, Gabe Rodriguez. His brother's the champion. He's selling all the tickets. He's selling the shows. He just got off a big knockout. And I'm supposed to be the guy they're bringing in to piece up. I went out there, I wrecked the dude, mauled the dude. And apparently that dude was really good, from the commentators and what everybody was saying. My focus was just so dialed in, and I had the confidence, and I knew that I deserved to win. I deserved to be there, regardless of whoever stepped on the mat with me, stepped on the cage with me. And I brought that energy into the match, and I dominated. And without the lessons I learned in jiu-jitsu, I couldn't have been that guy in there that day. So that was purple belt. Going into brown belt, it was just all MMA, not much jiu-jitsu. It was just all MMA fighting. Had my professional debut, won that with my jiu-jitsu, won that with my grappling, my wrestling, and had a few fights, had a couple ups and downs. But regardless of anything, sticking to the path and the journey, now that I'm doing more so MMA, not as much jiu-jitsu, those lessons I learned from white belt, blue belt, purple belt, especially in the competition days, still apply. And when I lost fights, I can always go back and see why it went wrong. The fights that I lost, there's multiple reasons. So no excuses. You lose some, you win some. But for me, I think some of the fights I lost were because of inactivity. Inactivity, maybe taking long layoffs, not running, just certain things that I was doing when I was a white belt and blue belt that I stopped doing. So if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu, I wouldn't be able to recognize that and see that. When I got my black belt, it was one of the best days of my life because I was able to kind of go back throughout time and really just look at all the fights I had and the matches and the lessons learned, and me hopping on the mat as a young kid to me as a black belt, as a man, took 10 years to get there to that point, you know? So I learned a lot in jiu-jitsu, and it's something I'm super grateful for. And without it, I wouldn't be the fighter I am today, you know? And going forward, you know, you guys are going to see a different level of fighter in these next couple fights. You know, I'm coming into my own. I'm able to run again. I'm focused. I feel good. And you guys are going to see it. But I just wanted to share some of my jiu-jitsu lessons that I learned with you guys. And, you know, if you have kids, you should put them in jiu-jitsu. It really will help them a lot with the confidence and give them the things, the tools they need to go into the world. And even if you're an adult, even if you're 50 years old, 60 years old, if you're thinking of that you need something, you need a little edge, you need something to just kind of bring that passion back in your life, I'd highly recommend going into jiu-jitsu, going in there, be a white belt, be humbled. You know, go out there, get pieced up by some 16-year-olds. Maybe you go out there, you think you're a tough guy, and you're getting mauled by some chick, getting choked out. But I think everybody needs to be humbled, and I think jiu-jitsu is just one of those things that it's something I'm gonna be doing for the rest of my life, and it's something that I've learned so much from.